Diego State direct snap to Bell. Matthews throwing. Johnson end zone. He's got it. San Diego State wins in triple overtime. 33-31.
Right now, the search is on for San Diego State's next head football coach. Brady Hoke announced hours ago he's retiring at the end of the season.
You guys played hard, and I'm proud of that. I'm also proud of the group of guys who are in the locker room. We got 2 more games.
Go out.
All right. What is going on, Aztec Nation? I am your host, Mateo San Diego, and you are watching, listening, however you are here. We thank you for joining. It is the Sons of Montezuma podcast. And once again, we are back with the live stream. And I'm very excited, but also a little melancholy. I'm not gonna lie. Everybody's probably looking at me a little silly for saying that, but we want to thank you for joining the live stream. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I'm seeing people already in the chat. Very welcome to have you. And this is an exciting time. I am joined with my co-hosts as usual. They are both here in attendance, and as you can see their names, they're also very excited here. Defending our borders from sea to shining sea, it is the one and only friend to you and me, K5 James. What's up, James?
Oh man, I got a little misty watching that video, man. Some of those memories reminding me of happier times with Coach Hoke. But man, we thank him for everything he did here, and God bless him on his next journey.
Absolutely. And of course, the dirtiest of the Dans is with us. You can tell it is him if you read his name right now in the red bubble, because he loves this kind of stuff. All the chaos. He loves all the chaos.
Yo.
What's going on, Dirt Ball Dan?
Daniel.
What's up, man? How you doing? You got your Cheez-Its?
Yeah, dude, that's got that in there. So good. But no, I'm pumped. And look at James is so pumped. All of a sudden, he's giving God bless Brady Hoke. He's not religious at all, but suddenly he's turning to God for. Yeah, we're all pumped. We're all excited, and I've been wanting to talk about something like this. This is kind of what gets my blood flowing, and I'm excited.
Well, all Aztec Nation got
definitely not melancholy. Definitely not melancholy. Definitely not.
Hey, man, all Aztec Nation woke up this morning, to that jolt that you're talking about, that jolt of news. It's not a mystery anymore. If you've been living under a rock, you don't know. But of course, the Aztecs lost on the weekend to Colorado State. Next thing you know, this morning, Brady Hoke officially announced his retirement through San Diego State, through their social media channels and whatnot. And that's the news. That's the news of the week. Everybody was so down off that loss to Colorado State, as they should have been. And, the questions were firing, and the move was made. And now we're here, right? So it's like a new leash on life. But I had to make that video. I had to put that video, right? Give a little bit of gratitude, because even though things have ended the way they have this year and last year leading up to this, like James said, you do gotta be thankful for the man who made the turnaround here at San Diego State back in 2009, coming here on the Mesa, establishing a culture and identity of Aztec football, toughness, all those different things. So you can't just completely gloss over that. Okay, things are ending the way they are, but James, before we get into everything that we're going to get into with this new development, top Brady Hoke moment in both his tenures, at both his two stints? In your mind, what would that be?
Oh man, from his first tenure, without a doubt, the Navy Bowl game, the Poinsettia Bowl. That was it seemed like the beginning of great things for San Diego State. And we knew it was going to be trouble hanging on to him. I didn't think it was going to happen that quickly with, Michigan firing Rich Rod shortly after that, it might have been even shortly before that. But I thought that was like the first of many great things to come. And I never forget being there that day. It was great. I had a connection with the Hillman family, and it was even more special for me because of that. But yeah, that was an incredible time. And then the second time, probably that Utah game, man, that was crazy. We were hoping for a win. Then for them to pull that out, especially under the circumstances in Carson, that was pretty big time game they won. So I think those are my two biggest moments with Brady.
All right, Dan, what would be yours?
Besides today? Man.
Savage.
I'd probably say the Utah game if I had to guess, but I'm not really that even that season. I wasn't that pumped or even that excited for that season just because of how poor the offense was continuously. So, I'm not a big Brady Hoke guy. I always kept it kind of quiet and professional, I guess, on here. But I'm ready. I'm just ready for a change.
Yeah, no doubt. It's hard to pinpoint, right? Because the two different stints, it was such a unique situation. It's a very rare thing for a head coach to return back to the same position at the same school. And, we are one of those with him. It was obviously the respect handoff that Coach Long passed it back to him, handed it off to him. And it was, in many ways, it was the easy hire at that time, right? It was kind of like I wouldn't say no-brainer, because I know there were a vocal minority that were like, we need to do a real search. We need to do another real search. But it was the handoff. It was like that tip of the cap. Thanks, Coach, for bringing me on, coming from Rocky Long. Like, I'm going to name him and give me that respect to do that. But yeah, it's kind of tough to pinpoint a top memory. I would say that Poinsettia Bowl, though, that was such a big turnaround for us, culture-wise, toughness-wise. I had the opportunity to speak with some alumni this last week, and obviously this was the topic of conversation with the football team. And everybody likes Brady Hoke, to that I know, alumni and whatnot. But it was just one of those things where you realize when he first came in back then, I mean, he actually went to Tom Abel's, sat down with him, let's develop these culture landmarks, these traditions, whether it's, the Warrior Walk or just different things of that nature, that connection to the fan base, to the community, to Aztec Nation, that was key. But this second go around, let's be real, it just hasn't, like you said, Dan, playing up there in Carson during COVID. I mean, it was just such a weird second go around. And for it to end this way, I mean, how do you guys feel about the way things ended? I'm a little, relieved, of course. I think we give the opportunity now to, like you said, Dan, you wanted some closure. You want some definite decision to be made, a vote of confidence or what? Well, now we have this decision. And now for these final two games, okay, at least we can kind of it's about his retirement, give him his flowers, and it's not just this thing looming over our heads each week. How do you feel now, Dan? I mean, now that weight is off.
Yeah, someone made a great point that it's like you always root for your team to win, but you always were worried like, man, if we just win like one or two of these games and they can't keep him because he's 6-7 or 6-6, when you still know that we're going to have issues next year, that always kind of when it came down to it, I wanted him to win every week, but it just made watching it not as fun. So I'm just ready to go out and now we could cheer. We know there's gonna be changes. We could go celebrate, go get loud and, appreciate him for the time that he put in and, start looking forward to what we're going to do about the recruits that have already committed and how we're going to handle that situation and transfers and all this sort of stuff. So I think the earlier, the better to get the ball rolling especially with all the other head coaching jobs that will be coming up. If we could find someone quickly, it's gonna be a better thing than trying to wait it out until the end of the season to fire the coach and hire him another month after that.
So the decision had to be made, right? I mean, at this point, like what you're talking about, the games weren't fun. People weren't showing up. And, it's just another, convergence of so many different things happening. The ticket prices at Snapdragon Stadium, but the fact that it's a new facility and people weren't showing up, it wasn't fun. It didn't capture the attention. It's one of those things where the decision had to be made. If you look at Brady Hoke, he ends his time, I want to say 39 and 31 in his 2 stints. Okay. Some memorable moments, top wins in a season at 12-2, that 2021 year. But at this point now, I don't know, James, were you able to listen to JD Wicker? He was on 760 earlier today, not too long ago, actually. And he had some really, really interesting points there as far as now handling this situation with Hoke's retirement. Were you able to check that out, or was I the only one of the group?
No, I was sleeping, dude, to be honest, because I worked tonight. So I didn't get a chance to listen to it yet. I'll listen to it later on this evening.
Okay.
But I think he made the best of a bad situation. I don't think any outcome would have been better than this, really. I'm sure he's going to get a large majority of his buyout, but they're probably spread it out over years, something like that, and let him retire and go out on a good note. And that way it's not a bad press thing for both parties. So I think it's like the best of a bad situation. And like Dan said, now we can just watch the games and have fun and just root for our team. And there's no other like ulterior motives or other worries we have to worry about while we're watching the games. We can just enjoy them and root for the team.
So I will share a little bit of those talking points from JD Wicker. He was on with John Schaefer on 760 AM. Definitely worth to go check it out. But the talking points was basically like what you're saying, James. It's a retirement package. They're putting together a retirement package for Brady Hoke. One of the big things everybody was saying, oh, we're hamstrung with his $5 million, $4 million buyout. We can't do anything, But looking back, you kind of realize there's always those clauses in contracts, right? Okay, he's going to retire, so they're going to put together some kind of package for him. That money will probably be a little under that original buyout, I would think, and probably spread out throughout a couple of years, I would assume. So that's something JD confirmed. And of course, that's still in the works. And one thing JD said, that obviously they're off and running. He used those words, off and running, looking for a new hire now. He gave a specific mid-December time. That's when they're looking to name a new head coach, mid-December. And one of the things he said that was very, very encouraging was that there's a significant amount of interest that they've already received, right? You think about everything that goes into San Diego State, San Diego. We'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. And, with the early signing period coming up, I know that was a big influence, right? You got to have some solid footing. One of the things he also mentioned, and he didn't mention too much, but he said whoever they choose obviously has to have West Coast ties. To what degree, who knows, but that's kind of like an obvious thing. So I see everybody in the chat. Barry Hoke, I see you, man. It's good to see you. Barry Hoke. I'm curious if you're going to change the name. You're going to keep the moniker? You got to keep it around, man. Got to keep it around. Oh, let's see. Digital Visuals has Hoke's retirement news instantly detox the Aztec fan base from its alleged toxicity. James, does the news, does it validate, the fan base's displeasure, or is everybody going to still be toxic at this point?
Don't get me started on that toxic thing, man. But no, dude, I think the fan base was justified being unhappy with the way things are going, man. And there's no way to put a lipstick on this pig the way the season has been. So I think the fans are totally justified. I didn't totally agree with like calling for his head at the time, like 3 games into the season. But, this was kind of the direction we felt things should go. And I'm glad they resolved it now. So now everybody can get back to supporting the Aztecs and hoping they make the right call on a new head coach.
Very well, very well. Let's see who else is in the chat. Angelica, how? Okay, new moon equals new coach. All right. Okay. How will this change or impact recruitment and retention? That's going to be interesting because, like we said, on the 4th, I believe that's the early signing day period. So we'll find out. I mean, I think it helps to have some excitement, like what Dan is saying, right? Some excitement now. You got something to look forward to, a new name, even if they don't lock in a new coach by that early signing period. I mean, that's it's a breath of fresh air, I think, into the program. So let's see. Who else? What else were we saying here? Matt, KOC or bust. We're gonna get into our picks for head coach. Who we would put on our what do we do? Top 5 guys? Is that what we agreed upon?
Yeah, top 5.
Jeremy, exciting times. Glad Aztecs football is interesting again. I mean, you haven't even named a head coach yet. How do we know it's going to be interesting? Just the possibilities. Just the
vibes reset we talked about last podcast, man. Just the program needed a refreshing kind of restart, and I think this will do it, man. This is a big deal.
SD Sports Fiend. Did the dirtiest of the Dans have a celebratory glizzy after he heard the announcement today? I think he was on the Cheez-It tip. He's all about the Cheez-It, celebratory Cheez-Its.
I mean, I did declare this the finest day of the Hoke era. So.
Damn, Daniel. Okay. Barry Hoke. Watch them win out for Hoke and finish and finish a 0-6 Nevada loss from a bowl. Oh, man. Well, we got San Jose State up on. Did you guys see they beat Fresno, man? They kind of dominated them.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from.
That's a rivalry game, though, man. That's the rivalry games are always crazy. I mean, they beat them that year. Fresno State was undefeated with Carr as their quarterback. So, a rivalry game, you kind of throw the records out the window and see what happens.
Okay. I see everybody's kind of naming some certain names that they want. We're going to get into that in just a sec. Let's see. Before we get into actual names, your top 5 list, Dan, in general, what are some maybe 2 or 3 characteristics of a new coach that you are looking forward into, without naming names, characteristics, features, anything of that nature?
I want splash. I want marketability. I want someone that's going to be able to bring in NIL money. So that's going to be a younger guy with an offensive background. Someone that can really get the fans and fan base energized again. Other than that, I don't really have any other particulars. I want the splash, though. I want the name, if possible. I want to see some of that same type of excitement that like Colorado got in San Diego. Obviously, it's not going to be to that degree, but just some fire, like just some. I mean, a head coach, just from a recruiting and a raising fund standpoint, man, that's a huge decision. They could turn it all around if they could be inspiring. So I think my name on this says, what I'm looking for. I want my boy Cliff.
Heathcliff, is that short for Heathcliff?
I used to love that cartoon, dude. It's showing my age, man.
All right, James, since Dan doesn't really have like a super specific, he wants to be inspired. He wants that splash. He wants some kind of Splash Bros marketability in San Diego. Obviously, he's got the Sunset Cliffs, baby, Sunset Cliff, some marketability, right? Are you a little more hard pressed? I know you're more like a specific type of football that you see and want.
I had kind of 3 things when we talked about putting our list together. I said I preferred 50 or under for age, but I stretch it to 55 because there's a few guys that I considered in that 50 to 55 area. Because I just want a younger guy that's more hip to, modern football, modern social media nonsense, and someone that kind of understands that a little better. And usually younger guys are better at that. So I was looking for 50 and under. also that they had previous head coaching experience, preferably at like another group of 5 school or like a lower budgeted Power 5 school. So somebody that didn't have all the resources in the world. So they know how to work with a program that doesn't have all the resources in the world. And then my third thing I was looking for was preferably an offensive mind, because we've had the defensive thing for a long time here and we were successful with it. And even with our success, it really didn't like pack the house like Dan was talking about. It didn't get people excited to go to games. So I prefer to have a little more offensive explosiveness from this program from now on. So those are kind of like the 3, what would you call them? Characteristics I was looking for in a candidate.
All very interesting stuff. I agree with a bit of that. But here's another question posed for you guys, and I see everybody in the chat. Everybody's still calling out, Force Ghost Fabio. I want Pete Carroll's son to be the next head coach. Okay, all right. Let's see. Braden Eakes needs to be offensive minded and adapted to the new era of football. Guys, I'm curious on this hire. This is a big, huge hire for JD. I think the way things have gone, right, with the Pac-12 implosion, the Snapdragon Stadium, it's got to have that splash, what Dan's talking about. But to what degree, right? I mean, a lot of those funds that were banked on with the Pac-12, you can't factor that in the equation anymore. Now we got new development coming, the residential development there on the property at Mission Valley. That's coming. That's been announced. Some commercial, but mostly residential. So hopefully those funds come in and can translate somehow into the program. That's yet to be seen. But I mean, when it comes to making this hire, guys, how do you guys think the program's really going to play it? Because like you said, before we got on, James, it's like, this is going to be the first real search for a head coach since they brought in Brady Hoke, moving on from Chuck Long and that, disaster of what that was. Doing a real national search, bringing in Brady Hoke, who obviously was a Michigan man, Midwest guy, MAC guy, had some time up in Oregon State as an assistant. I think Rocky was down in UCLA at a time. But, I mean, do you really see them going outside of the program? Is this going to be an Aztec guy? You know what I mean? Those ties, that tree connected somehow. I mean, how do you see this new perspective of doing a search?
Well, I think
Dan.
Yeah, first, I don't think they're using a firm, right? I don't think they're using a search firm, which is one thing, saves us some money, and it means that we'll probably we'll get a quicker hire. But number 2, I don't want an SDSU connected coach. Not that I don't want one. It's a preference. I want. Sometimes I think we hire coaches at SDSU with an SDSU type of background, and that makes me feel like we hired based off the comfortability instead of maybe like the best option or the best coach swinging for the fence. So I prefer that we get someone outside of the SDSU. But if someone like Tony White, I mean, he's the one that kind of makes me reconsider, because I'm really kind of proud of what he's become, and I really like what he's done at Nebraska. It's pretty awesome. But for the most part, my preference would be outside of the SDSU tree. James,
I think
buddy, we can't hear you.
James might be muted.
Sorry, I didn't press the button hard enough. I agree, Dan. That's like the last thing I'm worried about. I really couldn't care less if he has any SDSU ties. I mean, that's always a plus. If you find a candidate that happens to have ties, that's great. But other than Tony White, I can't think of anybody in this cycle that is like attainable. Obviously, we'd all love Kevin O'Connell to come here now, but he's doing good things at Minnesota, so I don't see that changing anytime soon. So yeah, that's like the least of my concerns when it comes to hiring a new guy.
It's always tricky. But I think this run of success, Brady Hoke, Rocky Long, back to Brady Hoke, it's like there's been so much time from the start of that turnaround to now that it's kind of like, well, if we're making this move, well, who do you bring in, as a part of that? A lot of guys are spread out. There's several names, obviously from the Rocky Long tree that we may look into, but let's see who else is the chat. Who else in the chat is suggesting Garrett Riley, Eddie O? Okay, Eddie O, OC. He needs some offensive. So okay, is there anybody that you guys in your mind, out of the names that we've seen, national, local, that you automatically just X out? Like they are not a real possibility based on your opinion, because we've seen a lot of names out there, but who in your mind is like the one who's like not happening?
Some of them, like he says, Garrett Riley. Garrett Riley has not going to come to San Diego. It's just he has no West Coast ties at all. So some of them, like I get, everybody wants to be the one that kind of uncovers like a coach, and then we end up hiring them or whatever. But people say that Grubbs is out of the price range, and that he may wait for a P5 gig. But that's one of the things is if you do it quickly, and if you offer a coach quickly where they don't have as many options, this is where I think JD made a good decision by letting this happen during the season.
Yeah, I think Grubb is that guy for me, just because, like Dan mentioned, I think he's kind of out of the price range and he's got his eyes on bigger things right now. But to me, he's like the best candidate available this cycle. But I just don't see that happening. He's got a lot of familiarity with the conference and he's a great offensive mind. So I would love to have him here. I just don't think he's really attainable for us at this time. But hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe Dan's right on this one, and he's the guy. But to me, he just seems kind of like a out of our price range kind of deal.
Sean Nelson, got to be someone that will bring some energy and identity to the team. Fiend, I like what you say as well. I want a coach that's going to come and sell to the entire city of San Diego and get San Diegans proud of their football team again. Dan, along what you're saying, it's got to be somebody that's going to be inspiring to the community. Guys, you guys want to get into your list now? I think it's probably a good time to get into your list.
Yeah, let's do it.
Who wants to go first? We'll do James. James, go ahead and start from 5 down to 1 in that order. Who do you got, man?
So this one, I had Tony White at number 5, but we've been talking between ourselves for a while, and Dan sold me. He convinced me. Cliff Kingsbury is going to be my number 5 selection. He would be my 5th choice on the list. Just because I'm not sold. I mean, he's a great offensive mind, but I'm not sold on how he could build a team, because he never really won anything at Texas Tech either. So Dan kind of convinced me, though. I agree he would be like a splash hire to get people into the seats and to see what the offense could do and maybe provide some fun offenses. I just don't know if he could win here. So that's kind of why he's slipped to number 5 for me. And like I don't think money is really an issue. I think he's still getting paid by the Cardinals a bunch of money, so I don't think money is really an issue for him. And then my number 4 was Dan kind of got me on this guy's train too. G.J. Kenny at Texas State. He's 34 years old. He's a young guy. He doesn't have many like West Coast ties, but he's kind of been all over like the middle of the country. And he's making all these numbers for salaries are reportedly, of course, because nobody knows exactly how much they make for sure. But supposedly he makes $800,000 at Texas State, so he's kind of an available guy.
How do you say his name again? How do you say his name?
G.J. Kenny, Kinne. He's the head coach at Texas State.
Okay.
Number 3 would be the former offensive coordinator at Colorado, Sean Lewis. He was a former head coach at Kent State. Another brilliant offensive mind. He was doing great things at Colorado when he got demoted, but he got kind of put on the hook for their struggles they had recently. So, and he reportedly makes about $900K a year, and he's 37 years old. So he'd be another guy with proven head coach experience and a track record. He won at Kent State. They didn't win crazy games, but he took them from a very poor program to at least a respectable program.
And he's the one that Prime let go.
Well, he didn't get let go. He got demoted to an analyst from offensive coordinator. So that's basically like kicking him out of the room, basically. And number 2 would be Tom Herman at Florida Atlantic. He's reportedly making like $750K a year. He's 48. He's proven winner. He won at Texas. He didn't win enough for them. He won at Houston. He won a bunch of games. He took them to the Access Bowl game. So he's a guy that's proven he can win, and he kind of has a little bit of West Coast ties, but he's got big-time ties in Texas. And my number one guy is John Summerall from Troy, the Troy head coach. He's a younger guy. He's 41. He makes about $1 million a year. And he actually does have some San Diego ties. He coached at USD back in the day, I believe under Harbaugh. I'm not positive on that, but I believe he did coach for Jim Harbaugh at USD. So he's a guy who's very successful at Troy. I think he'd be a great guy to take over the program. He's younger, but not too young. And he's already got experience winning at Troy, a program that's, they're a solid Sun Belt program, but it's not like, they were a powerhouse and he just kept it rolling. So I think those are like my top 5 guys that I would go with.
All right. Good job, man. Everybody let us know in the comments if you agree what you think of James' top 5. Dan, are you ready to release your list? Pretty safe to say we know who your number 1 is, but who do you got at number 5?
Well, he's actually not my number 1, but Grubb is my number 1. But I ended up doing a list of 6 because I think Tony White is 6 for me. His defense is really great for Nebraska right now. It's actually amazing if you guys look up their stats and how well they're playing.
Are they running Rocky's system? Is that the same system?
Yes,
or is
they're running different? They're running 3-3-5 in the Big Ten, and it's working. So he's really familiar with the recruiting in Southern California. He could probably put together a pretty good staff. He's now been at Syracuse. He's been now at Nebraska, so he has his coaching ties have expanded a little bit. So he's at 6. Now, if he was an offensive coordinator, you probably would have been bumped up a bit for me because I prefer an offensive guy as well. But we can't miss out on a great coach just because we're so starving for offense now. A defensive coordinator could hire, or a defensive side coach could hire a great offensive staff. So he was number 6 for me.
That is something really quick. That is something that JD did say too, because they asked him, "Are you set on an offensive mind only guy?" And he said, "If the right guy comes along, if it's the right candidate, they don't mind doing the defensive thing again. But obviously, they need more dynamics on offense." So, anyways,
and you know what? Hopefully we don't pigeonhole our staff or the hire with having to have strong West Coast ties. I know he mentioned something about that as a preference, but I mean, they hired Brady Hoke. Everybody thinks Brady Hoke was great with very limited West Coast ties. So I think, with the way recruiting is, the head coach isn't knocking on each high school and going to introduce himself and recruiting. They get their assistants to do this, and then the head coaches close the deal. It is what it is. I don't think you need to necessarily have huge West Coast ties. I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah. But I wanted to talk more about GJ Kinney, because I have someone who's really been how James says I sold him on him. Someone else sold me on him. And just listen to this. Young, energetic, runs a balanced but up-tempo offense that ranks 10th in the country. In total yards. We're 112th at the time. He has deep ties to Texas, which helps with the recruiting. He brought in 45 transfers to Texas State this year. And the first game they went into Baylor and smoked Baylor on the road. When he was at Incarnate Word or whatever that college is, it's Incarnate Word, I think. They beat Nevada last year. And, as a FBS school or FCS school. So he was 12-2 there. He's like a mind. James, he runs more than he passes. They run 56% of the time, which maybe some people wouldn't want to hear, but I think he's on the cheap. And I think he's someone that will have a brilliant mind that you're getting now where you may not be able to get in 5 years. just something to consider. And then James also sold me on John Summerall. And I did notice the USD ties. He's a linebacker coach there. So he's been really successful at Troy. It's a good program too. It's not like it's that much of a leap from Troy to San Diego State. So I think there's something there. 3 was Tom Herman. Herman's actually a West Coast guy. He actually grew up in Simi Valley, went to Cal Lutheran College. He is an offensive guy that put up huge numbers at Houston. He's putting up really good offensive numbers right now at FAU. Young still. And it's just, the expectations at Texas aren't very fair. So it's someone that we probably normally wouldn't be able to get if he wasn't still kind of stained from that Texas experience. And then I go to my boy Sunset Cliff at number 2. Like I said, I want the splash. I want that good-looking coach that people are going to get behind, get fired up, get some NIL monies, speak to the city, inspire some people, throw the ball around. Man, we need that. I want the exact opposite of what we have now. So, and then Grubb at number 1.
Very, very interesting. I'm interested about Tom Herman with his offense. I feel like he's at FAU, right? The team we beat in the Final Four. Oh man,
yeah.
I'm sure they would love that if we pulled him out of there. Let's see. What is the chat saying? Marshall Falk, he could just put together a coaching staff and let them all call plays. That's from Rome, the gentleman. Yes, sir. Oh man, let's see. Well, here's a name I know nothing about. Jerry Keel.
Oh man, he's a great coach, but he's old, and he had some health problems at Minnesota. Supposedly they're all cleared up. He was turning around Minnesota before he started having the health problems, and he's turned New Mexico State into a good program this year. So he's a great coach. For me personally, he's just too old. I don't want to bring in another retired on duty or getting close to retire on duty age,
What an ageist. No, I agree. Michael Wilson, David Shaw. I don't think that's happening. I know his son goes to UCLA, plays at UCLA, so he probably just really wanted to enjoy that. Having his son there at UCLA. So I don't think he would throw his hat back out there, but interesting. Okay. Oh, the JQ Daddy, do you guys want any of the current staff retained? I know that was a question JD did answer as well. And, he kind of gave his vote of confidence as far as, kind of hoping whoever comes in would have the openness to speak with other staff members. But I think whoever you hire, they're probably going to bring in their guys. But is that something you guys want to take a stab at?
It depends on who they hire, but most likely, there's a reason that JD already mentioned that Lindley and Maddox will get an extra year on their contract if they're going to honor their contract for another year. So I don't really expect, maybe like someone mentioned like Demetrius Sumler might be a good one. We've had success with our DBs in the past. He's a really good recruiter. But man, other than that, I don't see where our offense or our defense is excelling so well that they're going to inspire the new coach to come in and want to keep them on staff.
Right. That question was from the JQ Daddy. He says Adam Hall ? That's an interesting dynamic there as well. Strength and conditioning coach. Some head coaches are like dead set on their guy in that area.
Oh, it's going to be their guy for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that.
In my opinion, it should be up to the new coach. They obviously want to programs usually keep one guy from the prior staff to kind of keep continuity for recruiting and things.
Oh no, we got a little frozen action.
Oh, look at his face.
Oh, well, that might be a good opportunity to move a couple things along really quickly. We'll bring him back in a second. Hopefully he could get his camera working again. I see everybody in the chat, though. Jeremy, it will be interesting to see how stadium revenue might be used to fund the coaching spot. I know that was mentioned on the interview. And I wouldn't doubt it. I think this position that San Diego State is in, a lot of people were wondering if they were going to be able to make this happen. And, sometimes you got to dig a little deeper into the pockets. JD was talking about you got to have people show up and buy season tickets next season. He really emphasized that in the interview. He's looking forward to that support. He's depending on that support from Aztec Nation. So all these names we're listing, it's all fun and games, but no matter who it is, Aztec Nation, we got to support. I'll just run through my top five. My top five while James is out of the room, and we got a special guest we're going to bring in just a few moments. Hope you guys are all tuned in. An Aztec for life is about to join us. See, Dan doesn't even know this. I didn't even tell Dan. Dirtball. Okay, my number 5. You guys could laugh. I think it would be a lot of fun. Marshall Faulk, number 5. Bring Marshall in, man. You want that splash? Come on, NFL Hall of Famer, greatest Aztec, the GOAT. Bring him in here. I see James is back. James, okay, don't laugh at me too hard. I said my number 5 is Marshall Faulk. Don't laugh too hard.
Yeah, I heard that, man. And yes, I'm gonna laugh at you.
I mean, the recruiting factor, just that level of an Aztec there, that expertise. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to come play for Marshall? I see you, Rome. I got you. My number 4. I don't think it's realistic. Sunset Cliff, baby. That would be one of the top picks. I mean, of course, for everything you're saying, Dan, the splash factor. I mean, talk about NIL. I think you bring him on, a quarterback is coming, like guaranteed. That would be my number 4. My number 3, I don't think anybody would like. I think all you guys are going to hate me because I say my number 3. I squeaked it out a couple weeks ago. I'm going to say it. Nick Rolovic. Nobody wants him here. I think everybody would hate me for that. But, hey, I'm thinking of him back pre, what just happened. I think on a budget. Obviously, he took over at Hawaii, beat us when he was the head coach at Hawaii, went up to Washington State. COVID happened. He didn't take the jab. He got let go. And now I think he's in the XFL coaching the offensive coordinator. I think he would be somebody immediately. It's a passing offense. You get some fun and excitement. But I just don't think that would ever happen. My number 2, Tony White. I think Tony White, even though he's a defensive guy, I think keeping that connection, that's probably what Dan is pointing out earlier. Tony White? No, I'm on to Tony White now. You might be behind. But bringing him, I think that might be, if you're going to bring in a defensive guy, I think he's been around. He's got that added pedigree, obviously, in the Big Ten. And if it's working, if that scheme is working, I mean, that could be. I want to get back in the Rocky Longtree personally, but that's my personal.
Hey, real quick, man. I didn't say I hated him. I said I hate the SDSU connection and hiring and getting back into Rocky Long and all that. Let's move on, man.
Our guest may have a bone to pick with that. We're gonna bring him on in just a sec. My number 1, and this is just I'm a big dummy. Ryan Grubb. I would take Grubb.
You better not have Chapman. I saw something that Chapman said on the news, dude. You better not have Chapman.
I would say Ryan Grubb. It kind of pains me because he's part of the staff. Came from Fresno, went up to Washington. I made a joke to K5 James, like, yeah, Ryan Grubb, tell him come on down and bring Will Haskell Jr. back with him. Let's do it. But I don't think that's happening. Anyways, that's my top 5. Very unrealistic. Guys, I know I didn't mention it to you, but we got a surprise guest visitor. He's an Aztec for life. We interviewed him earlier when Snapdragon was about to open up. Right now, we want to welcome into the Sons of Montezuma live stream. Well, we got to get a little bit of music. We got to get a little music.
Oh, man.
Good to see you again, man. Welcome.
So,
how are you doing on a Monday, man? How are you doing?
How you doing?
I'm good, man. Good. Just out here. Just got done working out. Hopping on with you guys.
I could see that, man. I have no time to work out these days, man. My body is turning into just a sack of bones.
I feel a lot of shit going on.
Jeez, too busy. Well, what's going on, man? I know it's a busy day. We appreciate you for joining. Wanted to get, a take or two, or just your opinion on the developments. Of course, you were recruited by none other, the Brady Hoke staff and during that time, and you played mostly for Rocky Long, so you kind of have like a good mix of perspective, I would think. But what did you think about the news today, man? First off,
I think it's the right move, unfortunately, because I'm a big Brady Hoke guy, so it does pain me a little bit to see him go and maybe not have as much success as he had 2 years ago. But kind of over the whole process, thinking of it, I mean, San Diego State was in turmoil the longest time. The only thing they had going for them was just the fact they were in San Diego and had big names that were part of the alumni. So when I was getting recruited, they hadn't won more than 5 games in 20 years.
Yeah.
I think quite. So it was a long time, or maybe 1998 was the last good year they had. Like it'd been a long fucking time for San Diego State to win. And if it wasn't for Brady Hoke, I would not have been at San Diego State. So it does pain me a little bit to see kind of how the season went this year and kind of how the fans seem to kind of turn on him a little bit. And kind of the stuff I was thinking back on is without Brady's kind of the godfather of the entire success we've had over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Without, I think that's maybe the only person you could give more credit to is the guy that hired him. And I'm not even sure who hired him, who was the AD at the time. That might be the guy you could call. But without Brady, we don't have that first year where we win 9 games and beat Navy in the Poinsettia Bowl. Without Brady, we don't have Rocky. We don't have Ludwig, who took us to victory over Nevada in the 2012 game. We don't have anything at this point. I don't know if Rocky comes over from New Mexico to come be the coach at San Diego State. I don't know if we have any of the guys that he had on staff. Because even when he left, the guys that stayed, it was Rocky, it was Schmidt, Arnett. And you can tell, like, all those guys are out doing things right now. Tony White's the DC. Unfortunately, Arnett got fired today as well.
Yeah.
From Mississippi State. But these guys are promoting into bigger positions. So the staff that we had and the years that we had and the ways that things went down, none of that happened. San Diego State is still, who knows what happens if he doesn't come in. Maybe there's somebody else that comes through and create success. But without Brady, the world as we know it right now as the San Diego State Aztec is not what it is. So it's a bummer to see him leave, and the idea of him leaving and vacating and then we'd have nobody that's connected to San Diego State here is a little daunting. I know we're talking about it where maybe get somebody new, get a Cliff Kingsbury, get a Keel, get somebody that's just completely unrelated to San Diego and have ties somewhere else and just kind of get a fresh start. Because when you think about it, that's exactly what Brady was. Brady was from Indiana, Ball State, Indiana, as a player and a coach. No connection when he came in. Brought in all the guys from Ball State, brought in guys from the middle of nowhere, and it changed the whole trajectory. So maybe that happens. Do I want that to happen? No. Obviously, I want somebody that I played for to come in because obviously, hey, like I know you, I keep that connection. But that's my selfish thing. But I do think there's guys on the docket that could be successful in this position at San Diego State because they know what it is. They know what the new culture is. Doesn't have to be old culture. The new culture from the 2012 through 2021, where we didn't win, obviously, but we went to the title game.
Yeah.
Those are the best years. We didn't have any down years. Winning championships, probably the best 2 teams we had were 15, 16, because it was a mesh of new players that were coming in off the success and the old ideologies from the guys that came in and kind of put the team through hell. I always talk about the mindset from the teams of the early teens were completely different to the late teams because you had the guys that lost. The Hoke staff comes in, or the Hoke regime comes in, the Wellman regime changes the mindset, almost pushes everybody out, gets everybody kind of settled and dialed in. So when you walk in as a new booty and you're not ready to go, they're 100% in your ass. Like the culture was completely different. And that layover from guys like me, guys like Jordan Thomas, guys like Adam Dingwell, guys like Bryce Quigley, guys like Everett B., Dontrell, John Sanchez, all these guys that were, well, maybe not John. John was younger than me. But that core group that came in 2010, when we kind of passed those guys off. And then they had the two big guys behind. Jake Feely and J.J. Whitaker were still on the team in that 2015 season. That mesh of recruiting these new guys that kind of had to get through the shit and then getting these better talents that were coming in. Because I tell you, I played because I knew better than the guys that were bringing in. The guys that were bringing in when I was a junior, senior, much better recruits, much better athletes than I was. Because now
So
we're winning money.
Dan, when you hear all this, I'm sure it's going against some of the grain of those in Aztec Nation, right? I mean, there's two different thinkings, and this is what's going to make this hire so interesting, right? Because you do have so many other guys doing big things outside of Aztec Nation now from those Rocky Long trees. But let's talk about that culture, right? To get that, tap into that offensive side of the ball. I mean, what do we always hear, right? The quarterback in California, got to be able to get that quarterback. I mean, how does that jive with you, Dan? How do we look at that?
Man, I don't know. Like I like all those years. I like all the, all the history, all those players he named. Like I have a connection with them myself. But in some cases, I just think it's like I kind of want a fresh start. I want to, some new personalities, maybe some new culture, and see if there is somebody that could take us to a higher level. We still probably haven't maxed out what this program or the school could do. And say we do get someone and, they end up being hired by a bigger school, a few years later. That's not something that we worry about. Now we're in a better position. After he leaves, right? Our program's a little bit more stable. We either hire from within at that point or we look outside. But in general, I don't know. We've had such a connection for the last 15 years or whoever, or not even 15, maybe 10 years, that at some point we are going to have to turn the page and we are going to have to look outside of our circle that we trust so much,
Yeah. And that's what's funny is you mentioned that. That's actually what happened with Brady. He made it 2 seasons before Michigan came calling. And us as players, like we're 18 years old at the time, we knew that call was going to come eventually. We just never thought it was going to come year 2. We didn't think we were losing here. We thought it was going to be. We didn't think Rodriguez was going to get fired so quick from Michigan. Right. Because we knew that was the next step. Especially once we got to the bowl game, we just didn't think we'd get the call before he went back to campus.
Cody, Steve A says Cody Gallia for SDSU coach.
I mean, if I get the call, absolutely, I'll drop everything and go down. But but I'm not a head coach. I'm a defensive coordinator, and I got some guys to compete with.
Answer 321, Galea is the man. It's the coolest of the Codys, man. A lot of love in the chat for you, man. A lot of love.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
I don't know what the decision's gonna be. I really don't. If it's somebody from the Rocky Long tree, I wouldn't be against that at all. But yeah, just the offensive culture. It feels like it really needs to take that step, and I'm hoping they can do it in a way that fuses the two. I mean, I really don't know how New Mexico is doing this year with Coach Danny. You always want to wish success for the guys, but I mean, of course, with the news today, like you said, Mississippi State making that decision. So, I mean, there's a few, in that tree that may be, rustling up and maybe there's a possibility as a DC or a head coach. So, very interesting.
If we go deep, because obviously everybody in the Rocky Long regime is defensive minded.
Yeah.
If you can come in and you can allow less than 2 touchdowns a game, you have a shot to win, and that's been the story, running the football, defense over the top. But if Arnett, I'd love to see Arnett come back. I'd love to see Coach White come back. I'd love to see Gonzalez come back, but I mean, New Mexico is his school. He came because Rocky called. But the number one thing, so if they stay within the regime, they have to bring somebody in. They have to make the right choice on the offense.
Yeah.
That is going to be the most crucial job. Yeah.
I got a question for you. Do you consider Andy Ludwig part of the inner circle, or is he just there?
Did you just read my mind? Did you just read my mind? Because Ludwig. we haven't talked about him since 2012. He's bounced around a little bit. Been the OC at Utah and Wisconsin, I believe. He's an absolute fucking mastermind on the offensive playbook. So either if he throws his hat into the fire or throws his hat into the bucket and wants to get picked, that's somebody that should really be considered, because the way the offense operated in 2012 with Ryan Katz and Adam Dingwell, when Katz went down and Dingwell came in, that's where we went on our run. We started out 1-2 that year, and then took off and just won 6 games in a row to go win the Mountain West title. It all fell apart against BYU, but that doesn't happen if Ludwig's not the OC. And obviously he gets a higher calling the next year. So if Ludwig shows interest, or if they'd have to consider it heavily. But even if he's not, Wicker needs to be in his pocket and say, "What's up? I need you to come check out. Is this something you're interested in?" And even if he says no, still call him.
That's an interesting name. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, Ludwig. I mean, he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. There's a couple teammates I have from the past that would hate that hire. But the fact of the matter is that offense, what he did with a transfer quarterback coming in with 6 months prep, and then Adam Dingwell having to come in on the fly, that was the most explosive that offense has been outside of maybe the Donnell and Penny years.
SD Sports Fiend says scared money don't make no money. That was the mentality. That was his mentality. He's the one who called that play. And we're missing that, to be honest with you. The team is missing that. SD Born and Raised says Dingwell couldn't have done it without himself.
Yeah.
needed Andy Ludwig for that one, for sure. Awesome.
But yeah,
Rome need to bring back that dark side
exactly
defense.
What I was thinking.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting name. I'm curious if he wants to actually take that head coaching step. You know what I mean? He's been in Utah for quite a bit.
Yeah.
And, who knows what's going to happen with Whittingham. I mean, he's getting up there a little bit. He's still riding the motorcycle, but,
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to kind of get off the Utah bandwagon. They have what every other team wants, just some dude that's been there forever and just continuously sets a standard that works. And that's what we're looking for. We had it for a bit with Rocky and the initial Brady Hoke staff that stayed, but now it's. I think you're right. Maybe it is time for a refresh, new staff, kind of new setup. But at the same time, depends on what you want. Are we looking for more offensive flash? And maybe because last thing you want is a fucking Lincoln Riley or debacle where they can't make a playoff because they have Grinch as their DC. Because the Big 12 hires are a little bit concerning for me because they don't play defense and they're horrible. And I don't care what you say. The amount of linebackers that get drafted from the Big 12, the NFL all suck. And it's year after year. So last thing I want is to come in and all of a sudden we're Swiss cheese playing beating Boise, but also beating them 47-45. Like that's not what San Diego State's about, at least since I've been there. So the pride in the defense is huge, but also you're right. We need a better throwing game. We've had the receivers, we just couldn't get the ball to them, and that'll partly be in recruiting. And I'll give a little bit of flack to the staff over the years. Like I'm obviously out in Sacramento, California, and there's a stable of quarterbacks that have been coming out, and I've sent every single one down to whoever's down in the office. Coach Horton, I've sent them to when Jordan Thomas was still coaching, Nick Gambernati. I've sent kids down here's tape, check them out. I've had yeses from one coach, no's from another, and then we go out there with a kid that can't throw a 15-yard out to a 6'5" receiver, and we have to run under the center with the running back. And it's great when you have Rashad Penny and Donnell Pumphrey, and if you can bring dudes like that, and those are once-in-a-lifetime guys. You're not going to bring those in every year to a school like San Diego. Yeah. Until we get into a big-time conference, until that happens, it's never going to happen. So I'll put a little bit on recruiting and a little bit of how some of these quarterbacks are handled, because we'll pick the safe option every single time over the big option. And I'll tell you, what was the most explosive year we had? Was the year we had a fucking Kentucky transfer come in, a big 6'5" quarterback, Maxwell Smith, come in and just start.
Smith, yeah. Somebody brought his name up just the other day. That's true.
That's been the best. And the fact I've had multiple kids from big time schools up here, Oak Ridge High School, Vista Del Lago High School, Christian Brothers High School, Elk Grove High School, quarterbacks that can get back and sling it, quarterbacks we've played against in the Mountain West. Tyler Vanderwall was a decent quarterback. He was a year or two after Josh Allen, absolute 6'3" gunslinger. And I'm like, hey. And I never met Blaine, who was the OC at the time, quarterback coach, or Blaine, the guy that's now at Lamar, the Air Force guy. But they didn't like. I mean, JT told me straight up that he didn't like quarterbacks that were bigger than him. I'm like, well, what the fuck are you doing here? But we got to get away, because we've had dominant offensive line, dominant run game, but we've had wide receivers wearing 90 numbers, and we've had quarterbacks that are under 6 foot that can't throw 15-yard outs. I mean, I love Chapman, I love Agnew. They're fucking studs, absolute studs. I played with Chapman, I didn't play with Agnew. But at the same time, if you need to take it over the top, that was the only thing we've been missing is a quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing. So if we're looking to get the quarterback handled now, bring in a guy that brings in quarterbacks and then deal with the defense later. But if you want to keep a steady defense, you got to find a defensive-minded guy who will pass off the decisions on quarterback to a quarterback guy who knows one.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of the trick here. Because last thing we want to be doing next year is bitching about the quarterback.
Yes, sir. That's the one definite thing that needs to improve and change if we want to take that next step. Cody, thank you, man. We thank you so much for your expertise, the memories, everything you bring to the table and your perspective. Got to do it again. Hopefully, maybe after a coach is named.
And announce, yeah. If coach is announced, give me a call. I'll hop on with you guys.
Very cool, man. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Cody.
All right. Yes, sir. All right, you guys heard it. You guys heard it from Cody Galea. Let's get it right. Guys, I have a question. Now, what would you guys prefer? A head coach that actually calls plays, or like that big picture coach, like what Hoke was, having his coordinator on both sides kind of dictate the offense and all that kind of stuff. What do you guys think?
It's weird. I typically would have preferred someone like Hoke that isn't acting as a coordinator at the same time. So because want them to be able to take care of the whole team. But now I just want an offensive guy, so I don't care, dude. If he needs to call his own plays, run the offense, let's do it.
Yeah, I want a guy that's like you said, an overall program guy. But I also want a guy that has an identity, either side of the ball, that has like a system that he's known for. Whereas Hope didn't really have a system. He wasn't an X's and O's guy, really. I want a guy that was an X's and O's guy at one point in his career, and he has like an offensive or defensive identity. Yeah. But at this point, he just wants to bring a guy that meshes with his identity to run the defense or offense, and he'll just be the overall guy and have input on whatever side of the ball he prefers.
I mean, these are things.
I agree, James.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. I think because that's something to consider, right? Like Rocky Long as the head coach, he was really, in control of that defense every set, every play, and all that good stuff. And I love that. Because if you need to make an adjustment, you always got the head man that can make that decision, right? Rather than if it was somebody who wasn't really capable or running either side, wasn't able to like change the offense on the fly and see something and no, we need to be doing this. Let's do this. Like I love what you're saying on that. Somebody that has that expertise, that history, that experience to draw upon, but isn't going to overburden themselves with that workload, right? Because I mean, that's ultimately what a head coach needs to be able to have, that bigger picture view.
And look, Rocky's defenses, his best defenses here were when he kind of let off the reins a little bit and let Gonzalez and Arnett run the show a little more. That's when we had our best defenses, because they were doing what he wanted, but he kind of let them do what they wanted as well. And I think that kind of proves out that theory is like, you want a guy that has his style, and then he brings the guy to run his style. And I think that's what we got when we had Gonzalez and Arnett running the defense. And they were like our best performing defenses while he was here.
Eddie O says CEO coach Joe White, just be the head coach. Eddie says amen, James. Zachary Chow, most high-end coaches, a Saban or a Urban, don't and didn't manage play calling. Okay, I can get that. I mean, but if they're on that higher end, I mean, you got guys, coordinators that are just trying to really be a part of that tree. And I mean, they demand, some of the best coordinators. San Diego State kind of have to do things a little differently, right? So it's going to be interesting to see who this head coach is. Okay, well, who are your coordinators? Who are you going to bring alongside? Are they to that level, right? A lot to consider. How we feeling, guys? How we feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm going to be addicted to Football Scoop for the next month. Getting the updates from them to see who's reportedly getting flown in here for interviews and stuff. So I'm excited to see what happens, see how it plays out.
All the speculation. This is when the fun begins, man. Everybody thinks they had a sighting of so-and-so or so-and-so. And oh, man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to keep it a secret. Let's see. Well, this weekend coming up, Aztecs play on the road in San Jose against San Jose State. I mean, what else is there to look at the end of this year? How does this decision change how the team is played? I mean, it's kind of just let the seniors play, right? It's kind of let's just go out, finish strong, try to be the spoiler of San Jose and Fresno, and man, just try not to end on a bad note. But
hey Matt, real quick,
how does this change? Yeah, go ahead, man. What's up?
James, what are these coordinators that you wanted to mention that you think could be worthy of a head coaching?
Oh man, let me see. It might have got deleted when my computer started acting up. Let me just see if it pops up when I pull it up. Come on.
Was Andy Ludwig one of them?
No, I looked at Andy Ludwig, and I think the issue was he makes too much money at Utah. I want to say he makes like over $2 million at Utah.
He's really well paid. I think he passed up a offensive coordinator gig like at Alabama or some shit like that, like this last year. So they had to retain him.
Yeah, you know what, man? It deleted it when I had to reboot my computer. But it was I'm trying to think. I just know a couple of the guys when Mateo asked about guys we don't want. They mentioned a couple of guys, the defensive coordinator at UCLA and the defensive backs coach at USC. And I don't want any part of those guys, really. The defensive backs coach at USC, I mean, what has that defense done to give you, make you impressed about his coaching ability? And then with UCLA, I think this was his first year as a defensive coordinator. I'm not positive on that. But I haven't been that impressed with UCLA's defense. So I think those are two guys that people I think that's the West Coast recruiting ties that everybody talks about is why those guys get mentioned. And they're great recruiters, but I don't know if I necessarily want that guy running the program.
Well, I think, when JD talked about the West Coast guys, I was thinking like someone that he could be looking at is Brian Lindgren, the offensive coordinator at Oregon State. He's a big-time West Coast guy, and they're having a really great year, and their offense is pretty fun to watch. So I was wondering if you were going to mention him as well.
I think he was on that list, and I think the offensive coordinator at Oregon as well was on that list. But he's a really young – I think he's like 31, and this is his first year as I think it's his second year as an offensive coordinator at the FBS level. So those are two guys I think I had on the list, if I'm recalling correctly.
That may be a little young, you think? I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing. A lot of guys are saying, if you go after these young guys, like Dan was talking about, guys we can get now, but we won't be able to get 5 years from now. If they stay here for 2 or 3 years and leave, who cares? Because we're going to be in really good shape after those 2 or 3 years are over. I don't necessarily want a guy that's going to stick around forever. That would be great if he's successful and he decides to stay here. That's great, but that shouldn't be a reason you don't choose a guy because you're afraid of losing him in 2 or 3 years. That's a great problem to have, frankly.
Brian Lindgren's 43, so he's like a good age, and he makes $775,000. So, I could see him being someone that they take a good look at. Absolutely. No, it doesn't really excite me. If I'm being honest, it kind of bores me. But and that's what I'm scared about with this hire. Hopefully, we don't do something like that. But we also don't know we don't know what our budget is either. So
that's the tricky part. Knowing that the season ticket numbers have been declining. For sure, they were going to decline again this year if a move was not made. Now that there's that possibility, it's like, okay, what does that mean? How is that going to translate for the butts in the seats, but the dollars?
Well, you guys realize that San Jose State pays their head coach $2 million a year, right?
San Diego State's down on the list in the Mountain West for sure.
But that's just because we handed him the job, dude. He didn't have to interview for it. We didn't do a search. So it's basically, hey, you want this job? We'll give you this amount of money. They could have spent more money. It wasn't like the $1 million a year is all that they had to offer.
We hope.
I mean, how could San Jose State how can they pay their coaches more, dude? Like, I mean,
if they have the wherewithal to pay a guy, more than that, I think Grubb maybe isn't unattainable. So I mean, that's interesting. That's another conversation we can have, but I don't know where we're going to get with it because we don't have the numbers. We'll never see those numbers.
I'd be curious to know as far as the state money, right? Because coaches are state employees, so it's like, how do you determine, that those amounts?
It's paid. Well, their actual salary is only like 100 and what I forgot what it is in California. The most you can be paid as a Cal State employee, but I want to say it's like 185 or something like that, and then the rest is paid by the booster club, basically.
That extra arm. Yeah. Eddie, San Jose has tech money, so that kind of okay.
You can say that they don't have tech money. They're always broke. Look at their stadium.
It's one-sided now. It's one-sided, dude. They just renovated, but it's like one-sided. Well, that number is going to have to increase. I mean, San Diego State paying their head coach cannot be middle or bottom, on the pay scale in the conference, just to be honest. Any thoughts on Boise State, guys? I mean, they made their decision, and it seemed like we made it right after. This is kind of a similar trend we're seeing lately. Looks like James is locked up again one more time.
Dude, hey, you guys better remember this when mine does this. Your guys' is way worse than mine.
Oh man!
Someone mentioned
Jesus.
Dude, I know one of the names I know that will piss off James the most, dude, is Brian Harsin.
I saw that. That's not happening. Come on. Be real.
No, for a myriad of reasons. Not only is he a Boise State guy, which it's funny. I remember another guy from that list, Kirby Moore, Missouri coordinator. Yeah. That's a good coordinator that we could possibly look at. But I want to Harsin. There's a lot of downsides to him. I mean, he's a good coach, but no, thank you.
I don't think he would fit culturally,
Yeah,
no,
I think that's the biggest. Yeah, that's the biggest issue. He's kind of a Bible thumper, from what I understand, and I don't know if that fit in well here in San Diego.
Fiend, we got SDFC money now. Should have more money to pay a head coach. Need to swing for the fences on this hire. Absolutely, I agree. I think, when Brady first got here, this job is a completely different job now. And, that's kind of the whole point of everything right now. He was great to establish the culture. We heard it from Galea. Establish that culture, get it moving. But at this point in time, the expectations are way higher. New stadium, you got to match that quality. Got to be able to take things up to that level. And yeah, it's got to be a big one. It's got to be a big one. Maybe both in name and you got to back it up. And I think there are going to be some funds available. Something's telling me, because we were watching the game at McGregor's on Saturday, and that soccer championship released. They got out right at the same time our game finished, and it was just nothing but soccer fans coming in McGregor's. It was electric in there. That's the main tenet. Soccer is going to be a big element at Snapdragon. Aztec football has got to create something to grab this city on that level. It's got to happen. High school football is thriving in San Diego. There's no excuse for San Diego State not to as well. Guys, any parting shots as we shut this live stream down? I want to thank everybody for joining, whether you're watching this live or the recorded. episode that we put out. You can listen to the audio only, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, all that good stuff, or just obviously watch our episodes on YouTube anytime. Make sure you like and subscribe. But man, it's been a fun day. It's only going to get a little more exciting as we think of all these names and possibilities. You guys got any parting shots or words or takes for the rest of this year and how things are going to develop?
I think it's gonna be a fun ride the next month or so as we hear rumors drip out of the athletic department. So
No.
I'm excited. Let's see what happens.
And how about yourself, man? How are you feeling? Are you going to make it into the stadium?
I don't have anything.
Are you going to make it into the stadium against Fresno? Is that going to now make it more exciting to go into the stadium now?
Dan?
It depends on who the rumored coaches are going to be.
Still holding them, holding their feet to the fire, man. We appreciate it, everybody again. Once again, join us at the tailgate. That final game against Fresno State. Ooh, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, man. Well, everybody, thank you for joining once again. Make sure you go into sonsofmontezuma.com. Support our NIL guys for the holidays. Buy somebody a shirt. Buy somebody a hat. Support the young guys. They're playing hard. You know, you can hear it in Coach Hoke's voice. They haven't given up. They're still playing hard. It's just this is that year. Change has got to be made. So we're looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Have a good night. Try to get some sleep. Go Aztecs.
Go Aztecs.
All right.